Hey everybody, this is Scott Park Phillips, and I thought I would do a talk today that's a little bit of a hybrid, talk a little bit about practice, martial arts or golden elixir practice, and combine that with a little, discussion of theory and such. Um, People seem to be liking those discussions. The golden elixir is a major subject of my book. How do I put this up there? That. It's the third section in my book, and nobody before me really has taken the time to really try and show the relationship, the tight relationship between martial arts, particularly internal martial arts, and the golden elixir. And so I did that. You really have to be doing the practice and know the history to be able to do that. And of course, they're related to theater. And so, I'm going to talk a little bit about how you practice the golden elixir, and the effects it has on identity. And I think it's a good place to start by saying that martial arts, we mostly emphasize the physical, but that's like more beginning. The more profound effects of practicing martial arts are emotional or psycho-emotional. And I think pretty much everybody who goes deep finds that to be true. I know people use the term spiritual, and we could go there too, but at least the psycho-emotional realm is pretty important, and it's the part that's most interesting to me as a teacher. That's where I like to go. So let's start with what people often know. They know standing meditation, or maybe even sitting meditation, and people have some introduction to emptiness practices, often so the Kumar Francis traditions, talking about dissolving, discussions of melting. The Chinese term actually is lian, or to smelt. So you smelt Jing and it releases qi, something like that, or it transforms the qi. So so you can think of the body as dissolving, right? You're dissolving tension. It's so you could think of anything you feel as ice, change it to water, transform it to steam. So it drips down as water and then comes out as steam. There are many different metaphors: sugar dissolving in water, peeling an onion, chopping a carrot. Sort of systematically go through. You could think of dissolving and emptying relative to cavities or meridians, or all sorts of things like that, which I think are rather cumbersome. Actually, all of those are. But the real problem isn't how cumbersome it is what does it produce? And what I see it producing in general is people relaxing down to their dantian. And the dantian kind of expands, or their belly area kind of expands, and the chest really collapses in, and it doesn't really come back. Like there's no finished product there. And so that's actually an identity problem. That actually produces a kind of rigid identity, because so much of what makes a person dynamic is how much they can move their torso. Like if you're holding your torso still while you're talking, not only does it limit your vocal range, but it actually limits the way you can respond to things, right? So again, tragic versus comic, right? Tragic is like, I don't change. No matter what happens around me, I don't change. You can watch films, watch like The Good Wife. Anybody knows the TV. The Good Wife is like, she says his face, I can't do her face, but she just doesn't change. Like terrible things, crazy things are happening. She just doesn't change. She's like, comic characters change too much. It's funny. They overchange. And so, yeah, actually, the Daoist tradition is comic religion. So you have to be able to move your chest, expand, contract, not this collapse thing. And also, people get obsessed, especially in the martial arts, with power. So then you're doing power through, like power through the feet, through the hips, through the shoulders. And then that's all just ends up being compression in the chest. But in general, any kind of stable identity is created through compression in the chest. And that's a key idea of the golden elixir, in fact, is that you are, I'll use the word transcending, but it's really just getting free from what restricts you, what holds you back, what stops you from reversing, what stops you from undoing the limitations of the way you see or experience the world. And, and you can call that being an immortal. I mean, that would be a very limited definition, but you could say that your capacity to completely discard the identity, the shell, the husk that you're holding onto and transcend it would be a fruition of the golden elixir. And this is really quite direct. So I'm going to talk about emptying and so the process of emptying just as a method. And we'll go back to looking at how people freeze in that or fail in that. So the first thing, I think I can back up here with my mic. Yeah. The first thing is like you practice just emptying your arm, and at first it just feels like fluid, like empty the fluid, and then with most people when the arm comes back down, that it feels like it's filling up. We could speculate this is blood and lymph, but it's a feeling, right? The feeling of the fluid emptying out. And when it's empty, that's actually an opening. You can say an opening of the gate. Here is open, and you do a lot of circles like this. You actually can find the way in which this opens here so that when your arm goes down, it stays open and thus stays empty. The feeling of emptiness in the arm. This is preliminary emptiness, but it is a form of emptiness. You're also simultaneously not putting your mind here. Your mind is big. It's spherical actually. It's your mind should have a spherical shape, at least initially. It can be any shape as long as it's 3D and it's bigger than you. But it's the one type of emptiness is I call it from George Shue actually, Romeo and Juliet emptiness, because Romeo is talking to Juliet upon the Juliet, you are like the sun, and it starts snowing on Romeo. This is a Chinese Romeo and Juliet. It starts snowing on Romeo, but he doesn't even notice because he's just so in love. His mind is on Juliet, so he doesn't notice that it's snowing. This is another type of emptiness, where you could call it disassociation too, if you wanted to give it that baggage, but if it's basically a type of emptiness. So, I'm empty this way. My mind is out there, spherical, and I'm also emptying the fluid out of my arm, and I'm practicing keeping it empty. And then I'll do it with an object. So I'll pick up an object. Like here's a weight. And I practice emptying it. First I'm emptying it into my wrist and forearm, shoulder, all the way down. But later I just keep it empty, and so whatever position it's in, it's emptied into my body. Right, so even when I'm not holding it, the feeling of emptying in is still there. In, like as in internal martial arts, inward martial arts. You could also, take a statue of Guan Yin, and empty her, however you want to do it. And then after you've practiced with an object, I recommend a pole-shaped object. So like, I don't have one here, but I have a tripod. So like, you could just empty empty the tripod, right? So that there's no compression of your joints, basically. It's like so that there's no pressure here at all. The whole body action is one of emptying. My cat is really good at this, by the way. She didn't train. Well, maybe she did. I wasn't there. Maybe she trained with nature or her mother or something. But most cats can do this emptiness thing really well. So it's like they can give you a whole bunch of force, but it's empty. You don't feel their intent. You just feel their mass, like covering you. It's a test for emptiness. It's very obvious once you feel it. So this is practice, right? Practicing, you do that with your leg. Oh, and then if you're doing martial arts, but actually anywhere, really, if you want to practice emptiness, do it by touching another person. So you're practice emptiness with the coffee and keeping the whole thing empty of intent. This would happen automatically if I was yelling at my subordinates to you painted the house wrong or whatever, because my mind would be out there. But that would be, you call it unconscious emptiness. Or conscious emptiness, I actually touch you with the intent of emptying all of you. You could say all of you into me, but it's just so when I touch you, there's no effect. There's no transmission of intent to you, and there's no compression in me. It fundamentally comes down to a question of compression, that you get zero compression. And it was a really simple test to see if you have any compression at all, and that's if you touch someone and you feel your feet like on the ground, and there's compression, then it's compression. That means the compression is in your body. So it should be like zero effect when you touch on the feet. Zero effect. So, okay, so that's a process of emptiness. But then, like, this is the hardest part. The torso just is the hardest part to empty. It's the last thing. There's all sorts of other tricks for the legs, but the torso is hard. And the reason for that is because our identities are stored in it. We keep wanting to reestablish who we are by the way in which we hold ourselves. So we get up in the morning and like, this is who I am. This is how I hold myself. If you're like this, you're like, oh, I gotta fix it. I mean, not just because it's uncomfortable, but because it's not who you are. And so another basic emptiness, really called the golden elixir preliminary, is this. So I'm just shrinking and expanding. And I'm thinking of this. My mind is not on my body at all. There's no intent in my body at all. The intent is all out there, and it's spherical. And I'm making the sphere bigger, and I'm making it smaller. And if your body is empty of intent, just as in if you are actually really still, the same effect happens, and chi floats off the body. So chi is a buffer between your physical body and your imagination. So between Jing, your physical body, the mass, the dead mass, empty of intent, which reproduces itself, Jing, and Qi, which animates it, which if you're still just floats off, and your spatial imagination, Shen, which is what moves you, causes you to have a sense of the world itself. It's that's why it's the same word as gods in Chinese, because it's actually it is the gods are the emergent cosmos, and so I shrink and expand, right? The tricky thing is everybody, when they shrink, their mind goes in faster than their body. And that causes the chi, because chi follows shan. Shan is actually intent too. It's just spherical here, so we don't use the word yi. It's the word shan. So the spatial imagination goes in, and then you get compression. And then, okay, you release the compression. My mind's way out. Most people can do this. And then you go in and you compress again. and it's loaded. And you can do this with tests. You can have someone resist you this way, or resist you this way, resist you this way, like any dimensionality. And you just practice emptying their force and shrinking and expanding, having your mind bigger and outside. And this is a moving method of the golden elixir. You really need to establish emptiness first. And I recommend like an hour a day of just non-conceptual stillness, whether sitting or standing doesn't matter. But the practice, and why I teach it with the Tao Te Ching, the practice is of non-conceptual meditation, is to clear your body of any agenda. So you practice. That's like a muscle, right? There's the no agenda muscle. It isn't actually a muscle. It's like you get a street fight. It's not an actual street, but it's the conceptual muscle, the non-conceptual muscle, in a sense, gets stronger by dropping all conception. So. And it's not, you get really good at it or something. It just be something you can do. It becomes an automatic process by which you drop aggression, or you drop intent, or you drop forcing some kind of agenda. So when you have established that, then you can it's like you have Jing, Qi, and Shun available for this other experiment. So, and I think that's why a lot of people like try to do it the way I just described, and they don't get anything because they haven't established the not doing first. Anyway, there may be exceptions. I'm not trying to say that there is only one way, but that's the only way I know. In fact, if you read like what's his name? Do I have it here? Pregado. Yeah. Like this is Liu Ming's text by Fabrizio Pregadio. He's an Italian translator and collected the expert on the largest collection of golden elixir texts, and from the Daoist canon, yeah, you can even read his stuff free online. He's got a lot of it. It's goldenelixir.com, I think, or something. Anyway, I mean, you can see in there this description of like the low level, beginning level golden elixir, or the higher level. Like there's two schools, right? And I'm describing the high level school. Beginning level, you could just do the practice and maybe get fruition. If you establish emptiness first, it's actually self-arising. That's the fundamental idea, is that the nature of the cosmos is self-reversing. It's not a progressive type of knowledge that we get this and then this and this. You can, that's forced. That's aggressive. Spontaneous knowledge arises through process of reversal. You see it, and whoa, I see the opposite now. This is all over the Tao Te Ching. If you read the Tao Te Ching, or if you study it with me, you could study it. Okay, so what happens then is that compression, like the chest, everybody, I look around, I mean, everybody's chest is holding compression. So what happens is cosmology here, right? Qi, what animates your non-animated physical body with no intent, called Jing. What animates it is Qi infused in it. And so it's actually a tremendous amount of effort to keep establishing your identity, to keep it. So it takes work. You gotta eat food. You gotta deal with your problems. You gotta I don't all the stuff people have to do. You have to like get an education. Like you just do stuff to like make your identity. You have to like follow rules, lots of stuff and if you break a rule, you have to do something to reestablish it. If you get in some kind of really violent situation, your identity's all screwed up. You have to try and reestablish it based on your new perception of the world, based on reassessing. Any kind of trauma causes total disruption. But it's unconscious work. It's a tremendous amount of unconscious effort that we use to just hold our chest in place. So the biggest big effect of the golden elixir is when you get the chi to float off and not sit in the chest. It changes everything. It's, even just the realization that you're holding tons of tension in your chest as part of identity maintenance is a massive change. Maybe I'll do a video about emotional constipation in martial artists or something. Maybe, but I'll leave that for another day. But yeah, that's the main thing I wanted to say is that there's this very simple method of emptying. First, just stillness. Like you gotta practice stillness, and then you practice, emptying the arm. Systematically, put something in it. Put something long in it, like a pole or a sword or a tripod, something in it. So you practice emptying it, and then do the shrink expand, but with the mind outside, not letting the mind come in, not letting the spatial imagination, which is the mind, come in, because it will take the chi with it and it will create identity, will compress you. So shrink and expand with no compression, absolutely key. And this was, if you're a martial artist and you think of generating power through your body or through Shunfa or something, this will completely unravel your perception of reality, because you suddenly become so much, you become so much more powerful, but you won't feel it at all. There's absolutely no feedback that you're powerful. It's only visual, or the other person going, wow, you feel really heavy, something like that. There's no feedback, because there's no intent in your body. You're not generating force from your body. You're generating force just from physics, from mass moving. That's the main thing I wanted to say. Those exercises, and that they connect to the golden elixir. The golden elixir is, making the immortal egg, which is essentially what this is. Once the immortal egg is made, it creates reversals of perception, action, ordering. Right, so the perception of what I am is now out there, and that's what leads my action. So I don't have the sense of my identity being close in, contained, compressed, right? And what happens is called the consolidation of Jing. So the actual physical body, when the chi is floating off, the physical body becomes more dense, more toned, generally more toned, more integrated, all those things. And that's called the consolidation of Jing. Anyway, that kind of should put together the martial arts, golden elixir, meditation, identity. Obviously, this is, if you're a theater or dance person, this is the stuff, right? Because you don't want to go on stage as yourself. Anyway, thank you for listening. And buy my book. And by the way, my marketing strategy is the people who read my book and like it tell other people to read it. So please do that too. Thanks.